Yes, welcome to the training topic of ISO 9001 risk management. So, myself, Suresh Varpe, and I am a mechanical engineer, also operations and production management specialist expertise with more than 22 years of industrial experience and management system certification experience. I am also certified for lean manufacturing, Six Sigma Green Belt as well as Six Sigma Black Belt certified. So, I am a lead auditor for various management systems in the area of quality, environment, occupational health and safety, aviation, space and defense organizations. So I used to do trainings onto the domain of aviation, space and defense as well. I am having experience in the areas of quality, production, operations, management systems, trainings, auditing, certification, lean, Six Sigma and so on. Now let us start with today's discussions of ISO 9001 2015 version. The topic is risk management today for discussion. So in this session we are trying to understand why risk management is necessary, how to identify risk and opportunities while establishing management systems and related to our quality management system. Next topic we will be going to discuss how you are going to address those risks, and then next topic will be how you will check the effectiveness of the actions taken to address the risk. So let us begin with the requirement of the standard. This standard ISO 9000 2015 has eliminated requirement of preventive action, and instead of preventive action as a requirement, standard has introduced requirement of risk and opportunity under the subclause of 6.1.1. So the basic standard requirement is that as per the risk and opportunity clause requirement, organization shall identify risk and opportunities with respect to quality management systems. So here we must understand identification of risk and opportunity is a expectation of the quality management system. So when we say identification, it is within the scope of the quality management systems. Basically, we know that scope of the management system is defined under the clause of ISO 9001 2015 standard, clause number 4.3. So once that scope, applicability and boundary have been defined, we have to ensure risk and opportunity identification is limited to the identified applicability and boundaries of the scope of the quality management system. So we will limit our risk and opportunity within the boundary of scope applicabilities. So let us begin. What do you mean by risk? So risk is a effect of uncertainty. So when we say something is a risk, that indicates it is a potential risk. So this particular risk may or may not realize, but it is a potential. So in future it may or may not happen, but still there is a potential that it will happen. That is called as a risk. So this is a very simple terminology I have explained for you so that not to go into technical jargons. Now opportunities. Opportunities basically when we say something we can improve, okay, with respect to quality management systems, it can be your rejections into the organizations, it can be profitability which is a weak into the organization, it can be further improved, less productivity, inefficient employees, their performance we have to improve, or we can say there can be a targets associated with your production activities, supply chain bottlenecks will be there, supplier end rejections will be there, customer end rejections will be there. So whatever the pain areas are there for organizations, so you can consider those pain areas as a opportunity for improvement and try to identify opportunities so that it will further help for the organizations continual improvement with respect to quality objectives targets have been taken by the organization for the benefit of the organization. Secondly, you can also look for the opportunities which will enhance the customer satisfactions. So when we say enhancing the customer satisfaction, so basically it is indicating it is one sort of customer delight beyond the customer minimum expectations. We when we want to move, we have to identify opportunities. So basically there can be various methodologies for identifying opportunities. For example, when you are going to identify opportunities, you can use a customer satisfaction survey or customer research into the market as an input for your study. Here, opportunity will be related to negative feedbacks given by the customers can be considered as an opportunity to improve. Even positive feedback or positive parameters which are highly rating by the customers can also be considered as a strength of your management system or organization, and you can now play on those strengths and those aspects, and still this can be considered as an opportunity for further enhancement of business processes and your management systems. So let us begin with the risk factor now. So basically we have seen what is a risk. Now why risk has to be identified, the purpose and logic. If we don't identify risk into the quality management system processes, if we don't identify risk associated with internal issues and external issues that are relevant to the quality management system, if we are failed to identify needs and expectation of interested parties and associated risks, and if we are not able to identify the performance of the quality management system related risk, then probably your management system will not give you intended results. So it will not be able to continually improve, and in the competition into the market in your business you will be lagging. Second factor is, if you don't improve into your legal area, so there is also risk of reputation for your organization. So that is the idea and logic. You must identify risk as a proactively and then try to improve on those areas. Therefore, those standard expect risk identification as a requirement, but it is also important for the business why risk is identified, so that business can be further sustained in the long term and the business results, business expectations can be met and exceeded. That is the idea behind identification of the risk. Now let us think, when standard says risk has to be identified, so there are three areas where we can easily identify risk. For example, first area, let us talk with the context of organization. Already we do know that context of organization is nothing but it is a external issues, external environment, and internal issues, internal environment that is impacting to the organization either positively or negatively. So when we say issues are impacting positively to the organization, that leads opportunity. And when we say these issues are impacting organization or business process in a negative way, so that will lead to your basically risk. So let us say examples. For example, when we say external issues, Government of India has taken a policy decision of the demonetization. So when there is a demonetization actually happen into the market, what happens? Some of the small scale industries face the issue of crunch of availability of cash, because most of the small scale organizations sometimes they were dealing with the cash purchases and cash sales also. So this has impacted those small organizations, because the government has stopped that cash mechanism into the market. So that become a risk for the organizations. So if such organizations are failing to identify this demonetization as a risk to their business processes, then probably they will not think about how to improve of those risks, and then how to protect the organizations, and how they should sustain the organization's performance with respect to this external policy of the government of India. For example, demonetization. This is just a example how the external market, how the external environment is impacting our organization in either positive way or a negative manner. So let us say organization has identified issue of say demonetization. Now to do effective risk management, every organization has to identify first of all what are the external issues, what are the internal issues which are relevant to our quality management system, and that too within the scope of the quality management system. So first of all, identify the external issues. Now when we say issue identification, the methodology can be different. It can be different from organization to organization. Some organization can do SWOT analysis. So SWOT analysis is a tool which talks about strength, weakness, opportunity and threat analysis or assessment. Based on that SWOT analysis, effective risk and opportunity can be further identified and actions can be taken. So PESTEL, second part is a PESTEL analysis. It is basically political factors, economical, social, technological, environmental, and legal parameters or factors we have to consider as a external factors. So sometimes it is called PESTEL analysis. We have to identify those factors, external factors, what are the changes into those policies, procedures externally, and whether how they are going to impact our organization either positively or negatively. And if those factors, those parameters are relevant to the quality management system, then we have to identify those issues first, and related risk and opportunities has to be identified. So this is a basic step in identification of our risk. So let us take example of PESTEL analysis, external factor. So there P is a political. There are changes into the political environment. For example, currently BJP is ruling the party. Tomorrow BJP may not be there. There will be a Congress party or and so on. This happens, political changes happens not only at the central level, it happens at state level, local level, district level, and the industry where you are situated in that locality also political changes are bound to there. When such political changes are going to happen, there will be a political policy changes, political decision changes, and sometimes these political decisions may affect your organization either in a positive way or a negative way. Therefore, you must be very careful about this political environment which may be going to affect your organization either positively and negatively, and try to identify issues with respect to those political changes. So that is the first thing. Economical, there are always changes into the economies. External factors like external issues like COVID-19, for example, some crisis into the external market like US economy is under pressure. So external, we can say recession from the global. So those factors are the external factors. Sometimes these may also affect our organization either positively or negatively, depending upon your business, depending upon your scope. So as an organization, as a management, it is our responsibility to identify all those factors and consider those either external issues. So that this is all about, we have discussed now external issues identification. Next topic is a internal issue identifications. So organization is there for the purpose of doing sales, improving sales, bringing profits, helping the employees, growth of employees, satisfying the customers, continual improvement into their internal process. So these are the basic objectives or basic needs of the every organization. And to realize these, we have to consider the internal performance of the organizations. Therefore, internal performance can be an internal issue of the organization. Secondly, values of every employees can be different at their personal level because their personalities are individual. When they are coming into group and form an organization, as a organization, the organization values may also differ, and sometimes management or the top management has their own values, their own value systems. Therefore, in such a dynamic environment, there is always possibility of clashing the values of the organization as well as individual employees, and that can become an issue for the organization. So that is a second topic can be considered as a internal issue. Culture of the organization. So if the culture is a positive, nurturing, supporting to the employees, motivating to the employees for performance oriented without any politics or something like that, those type of positive cultures are bringing opportunities for the organizations and vice versa. Therefore, culture can also be an internal issues. Knowledge management. So for a sustenance or for a performance improvement, competence is required, and competence is gained by the employee through the knowledge. Either it is a collective experience of the organization or collective experience of individual employees, their learnings. And this knowledge, therefore, is also a one parameter for these internal issues. These are some of the things which can be considered as internal issues, but these are not limited things. So this is the first step. When you are going to risk management, you have to identify first of all external issues and internal issues. Either you can list down, do the SWOT analysis, do the PESTEL analysis, whatever easy for you. The objective, our risk management should be more effective. So next topic for our risk management as an input, you will require identification of needs and expectation of interested parties. So usually when there is a business, the business is associated with the stakeholders. So these stakeholders becomes your interested parties. They are interested into your business. Either they will get affected because of the organization activity, or organization is going to affected because of their activities. So that is what interested parties, or you can say stakeholder. So here you have to first understand what are their needs and expectations. For example, let us take example of your interested party as a employee. So as long as employee is satisfied, as long as his needs and expectations are made, he will try to contribute in a more positive way. He will contribute to performance of his own, and that will lead the team performance, and ultimately organizational performance will improve, and that will impact your customer satisfaction, continual improvement, which is the objective of this standard. So first of all, we have to identify the employees' expectations. So when we say needs and expectations, so need is a basic requirement of that interested parties, and expectation can be when its need is fulfilled. Beyond that need, there can be expectations. For example, employee need can be whenever he is traveling for assignment from one city to another city, he will require a cab for travel. So that can be his need. Now, if we want to understand what can be expectation associated with this travel activity, for example, he may think that he may require Innova because of the road condition. Road is not good, so there can be vibrations onto the road. So he may feel Innova will be better than instead of simple Indica or Desire sort of vehicle. Or he may expect AC should be available within the cab so that he will be comfortably travel. So that is the difference between need and expectation. So within our scope of the management system, what are the products and services and activities we are performing within the organization, within those applicability and boundaries, organization must identify what are the needs and expectations of that employee, which are going to affect the performance of the quality management system. We should not go beyond the scope of the management system. For example, employee may wish any other things which are beyond the scope, but it is not the responsibility of the organization to identify those wishes and wills of that interested parties. So when we say identification of needs and interested parties, it has to be within the scope of the management system of the quality management system in this case. Now let us say organization has identified needs and expectation of interested parties. So examples of interested parties can be employees, customers, stakeholders, bankers, financiers, legal authorities, statutory and regulatory bodies, political authorities, Gram Panchayat, so industrial MIDCs. So those can become some of the interested parties. Sometimes factory inspectorate, Maharashtra Pollution Control Board or pollution control boards can be your interested parties. So you have to identify all these interested parties, what there are needs and what there are expectations, that has to be identified. Probably you may try to identify their list also. If it is a not requirement of a standard that you must document all these needs and expectation of interested parties, and you must document internal and external issues, but it is advisable if you make some list or document so that it will be easily available with you when you are going to do risk management, because risk management has to be effective. Now let us move to the next parameter, processes and performance. Now when we say about the quality management system processes, every organization is having a system, and this system is made up of various processes. Typically, organization is having processes such as, but not limited to, top management, quality management system, production, quality assurance, quality control, maintenance, purchasing process, sales and marketing, customer realization process, HR and training process, stores, purchase, logistic management, supply chain management, supplier development, and so on. These are some of the examples of the processes typically we observe into the industries. So as an organization, we have to identify these quality management system processes, and once we identify these processes, we are As per the requirement of the standard, we must have a criteria for these processes. When we say criteria for the processes, what is the performance targets, what is the performance indicator, what is the objective for that process to measure, so that we can say yes, this process is performing as expected. So those KPI indicators has to be established. Now we have to link these quality management system processes with respect to their KPIs or performance indicators, whether these processes are able to achieve the intended results, targets or not. That is important. That is core to the business. That is core to that process. Therefore, risk associated with not meeting these targets, objectives has to be identified. So these are the three minimum areas from where you will get an input for the risk management as a study. Now let us go into the risk management little bit ahead. Now you have identified your issues, internal, external issues, needs and expectation of interested parties, and then you have also done your QMS process related performance targets and associated risk have been identified. So first part, once your issues are there, with respect to these issues, what is the risk? You have to ask a question and then come out with that as a risk identified. Needs and expectation of interested parties already done. Ask the question, what is the risk if these needs and expectations are not fulfilled? Ask the questions, what is the opportunities for improvement for the organizations once the needs and expectation of interested parties are fulfilled? And then now you can easily document those risks and opportunities. So basic step, now you have identified your risk as well as your opportunities. Now once this identification is done, next step, that is a requirement of the standard that you have to address those risks. So when we say addressal of the risk, so there can be different methodologies, different mitigation strategies can be thought. For example, risk can be avoided, risk can be transferred, risk can be eliminated, risk can be shared, or risk can be mitigated. So there can be n number of ways management is interested to deal with that particular risk. So as a auditor, you should not stress that organization should do this or should do that, because it is a organization and it is a organization management that will say how to deal with this identified risk. So that basically becomes your mitigation plan. And now based on your risk and management decision, risk mitigation plan has to be established there. When we say risk mitigation plan, there has to be clear identification of activities has to be done to address those risks, and every activity must be backed up with responsibility and specific timeline. When these three things are there, risk mitigation plan, responsibility, target, we can say risk mitigation plan is now available. Once this plan is established, now it is a implementation part. Already you have taken a time, you have assigned the responsibilities, and you have clear cut activities to address this risk. Now implementation phase. Organization has to implement this risk mitigation plan as per the timelines, and once this risk has been implemented, next will be you have to evaluate effectiveness of the risk. So when we say effectiveness of risk evaluation, basically whatever the activities we have implemented to address that risk, we have to check whether the actions implemented are effective to meet the intended results or not. If these are giving the intended results, that means the actions implemented are effective. If we are not getting the results as expected even after implementation of actions, that means actions are not effective. That further concluded that further actions are required or will be required, and then further you have to readdress those risk mitigation plans, and until all these risks are going to give you effective results, this cycle will continually work upon. So this is the idea about identification of risk, opportunity, their implementation plan. After implementation, you have to verify whether the risk addressal is effective or it is not effective. And usually this effectiveness is also to be reviewed with the management during their management reviews. And management can give a decisions on the actions or maybe decisions with respect to the risk mitigation plans and their effectiveness. So this is a whole idea about the risk and opportunity identification and addressal of the risk. Okay, we have done the basic purpose of this risk identification opportunity. Now, what is the benefit of doing all these things? Basically, when we have identified risk, it is a risk of customer complaint, it is a risk, it may be a risk of accident, or it may be risk of customer dissatisfaction, or it may be a risk of reputational loss because of legal non-compliances. So once you have mitigated those risks, ultimately organization is going to benefit, and the benefits will be like the satisfied customers, continual improvement into the organizations, and their process indicators, process performance will be improved. Legal reputation will be there. There will be no situations of any notices coming from legal bodies. So this is the way organizations will become successful if they are able to identify risk and opportunities, and they will be continually improving their processes accordingly. Because once you are saying implementation plan, that means you are going to change your systems, and this continual changes into the system will bring continual improvement into processes and continual improvement into again customer satisfaction. So this is a short description about the our risk and opportunity. Thank you very much for today's video. Thank you.